Hello and welcome to the next edition of the BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer podcast series. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host and moderator for this ongoing discussion on the latest insights into hybrid IT and Internet of Things solutions. Our next operational technology optimization journey discussion revisits the drive to define the refinery of the future at Texmark Chemicals. Texmark has been combining the best of OT with IT and now IoT to deliver data-driven insights that promote safety, efficiency, and unparalleled sustained operations. Stay with us now as we hear how a team approach, including the plant operators, consulting experts, and latest in hybrid IT systems, join forces for rapid optimization results. With that, please join me now in welcoming our guests. We're here with Linda Salinas, Vice President of Operations at Texmark Chemicals in Galena Park, Texas. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you for having me.
We're also here with Stan Galansky, Senior Vice President of Customer Success at CB Technologies in Houston. Welcome, Stan.
Howdy. My pleasure to be here.
And we're here with Peter Moser, IoT and AI strategist at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, also based in Houston. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Dana. Glad to be here.
Great to have you. Stan, let's start with you. What are the trends and technologies, even the operational methods that have come together to make implementing a refinery of the future approach possible? What's driving you to be able to do things in ways that you hadn't been able to do before?
Well, I'm going to take this a little bit in parts, starting with the technologies. We were faced and have been exposed to an availability recently of affordable sensing devices. These are proliferating in the market these days. In addition, the ability to collect large amounts of data cheaply, especially in the cloud, and then having ubiquitous Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and other communication links rolled up into one presented themselves as an opportunity for us to take advantage. On top of all this, the advancement of AI, machine learning software, and so forth, often referred to as analytics, has just accelerated this opportunity.
And Linda, has that combination of events dramatically changed your perspective as VP of Operations? How have this coalescing set of trends changed your life?
Well, they've really come at a good time for us. Our business, and specifically for Texmark, has morphed over the years where our operators are more broadly skilled. We ask them to do more with less. They have to have a bigger picture as far as operating the plant. So an operator is not just sitting at a control board running one unit, or the operator is not just out in the unit keeping an eye on one tower or one reactor. Our operators are all over the plant. They're operating the utilities and wastewater systems, and they're doing their own lab analyses. So this technology has come at a time that provides them the information that's plant-wide information so that they can make more informed decisions in the plant, on the board, in the lab, when they need to.
And Peter, as somebody who's helping to supply some of these technologies, how do you see things changing? We used to have OT and IoT and IT as sort of separate, not really related. How are we able to make those a sum greater than the whole, a whole greater than the sum of the parts, rather?
Well, that's a great question, Dana, because one of the things that has been a challenge with automation of chemical plants, as these have been two separate towers, you had operations technology very much separated from IT, and what's been the key contributor to the success of this digitization project is the ability to bring both those two domains together successfully, but also bring a partner ecosystem together that's a combination of IT and OT partners. And so when you have that combination, you end up with the 1 + 1 = 5, which has been what we've been able to achieve at Texmark.
Stan, tell us a little bit about CBT as an organization, and how do you fit into that ecosystem that Peter just described?
Well, CBT is a 17-year-old company. It's privately owned. We cut our teeth early on by fulfilling high-tech procurement orders for the aerospace industry. During that period, we developed a strong appetite and strength in designing, testing, and installing compute and storage systems for these industries and vendors. It evolved into developing an expertise in high-performance computing, software design platforms, and so forth. About 3 years ago, we recognized that the onset of faster computational platforms and massive amounts of data and the ability for software to control that data flow was changing the landscape, and that somebody needed to analyze that data faster over multiple mediums. Hence, we developed a practice around comprehensive data management and combine that with our root experiences, that led us to become a systems integrator, which is what we've been assigned to do and serve in this capacity for Refinery of the Future.
Linda, before we learn more about what you've done and how it improves things, let's learn a little bit more about Texmark and some of the challenges with a large refinery operation. You have to have sort of a special approach to making changes. Any downtime can be a problem. So tell us about, one, what you do as a company, and then what some of the challenges about making improvements in your type of physical infrastructure.
That's a great question for Texmark. Texmark is a family-owned company. We were founded in 1970 by David Smith, and we do have a unique set of challenges. We sit on 8 acres in Galena Park, and we're surrounded by a bulk liquid terminal facility. As you can imagine, a plant that actually was built in the 1940s has old infrastructure. The layout is probably not as efficient as it could be. In the 1940s, we didn't have a need for wastewater treatment, or things may not have been laid out in the most efficient ways, and so we've added these things over the years, and for one, we're landlocked, but two, just things are not maybe sited in the ways that they would be most optimally sited. For example, we had 2 or 3 control rooms sprinkled all throughout the facility, but we've learned later that siting is an important issue, so we've had to move our control room to the outskirt of the process area. As a result, we've had to then move or reroute our control systems and wiring towards that central control system. And so we work with what we have, and that presents just sort of infrastructure challenges. The other thing that chemical plants and refineries are faced with is that the things that we handle are hazardous. They're flammable, they're toxic, they're not things that people want to have in the air that they breathe and in the neighborhood that is just a quarter mile downwind of us. So we have to be mindful of safe handling of those chemicals, and we have to be mindful that we don't disrupt our processes. And so finding time to shut down on purpose to install and deploy new technology is a challenge. Chemical plants and refineries will on purpose find time to shut down, turn around, and perform maintenance with a very defined scope and a limited budget. And so the ability to come up and down is one thing that actually is a strength for Texmark. Because we are a smaller facility, we're able to come up and down and deploy and test and prove out some of these technologies.
And Stan, and working with Linda, you all have carved out quite a challenge for yourselves. You're not just trying to have incremental improvement, you're trying to define the next state, if you will, of safe, efficient, and operationally intelligent refinery. Tell us how you feel like you're able to take that leapfrog, if you will, rather than baby steps at this time, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing to achieve that new state, that new definition of an optimized refinery.
We first sat down with the customer and we asked them what are the key functions and challenges they had in their operations. Once they gave us that list, we then looked at the landscape of technologies and the available categories of information that we had at our disposal, and we said, how can we combine this to have a significant and potent impact to your business? And we came up with 5 solutions that we targeted and started working on them in parallel. And they have proven to be a significant handful of challenges, especially working in a plant that's operational, but quite significant. Based on the feedback we've gotten from their personnel, we feel we're on the right track. So we're attacking predictive maintenance and analytics by censoring some of their assets, their pumps. We are putting video analytics in place by capturing scenes, video scenes of various portions of the plant that are very restrictive and need to have careful monitoring. We are looking at worker safety and security by trying to capture biometrics and geofencing and location of workers so that they're safe and we know when they might be in danger. One of the other functions is connected worker, and that solution is garnering a lot of attention in the marketplace because we're able to bring real-time data from the repositories of the company to the hands of the worker in the field, oftentimes in a hands-free condition where he has wearables on his body that project and display the information without him having to hold a device. And lastly, we're tying this all together with an asset management system that can track every asset and tie it to every unstructured file that has been recorded or captured. So we're able to put the plant together and combine it with a 3D model and keep track of every asset and every piece part and make it useful for the workers of any level of responsibility here.
It's impressive how this really touches just about every aspect of what you're doing there. Peter, tell us about some of the foundational technologies that have to be put in place in order to accommodate what Stan has just described and help overcome some of the challenges that Linda described. That sounds to me like you got to really put in a different kind of network. You got to have broadband and wireless. Tell us a little bit about the edge computing and other issues that you have to overcome.
Dan, that's a great question. And before I describe what the foundation consists of, I think it's important to really explain what led to the foundation in the first place. I think it's very important that, like Texmark, you sit down and you think big. You kind of go through the art of the possible, if you will. Because most of us, we don't know what we don't know, right? And so when you bring in a cross-section of people from the plant and you talk about, if you could do anything, what would you do and why would you do it? And have that conversation first, that gives you kind of a spectrum of possibilities, and then you prioritize that. Those prioritizations help you shape what the foundation should look like from which to build the answers to all those questions or to satisfy all those needs. And that's what led to the platform that we have, or the foundation that we have at Texmark, is we looked at the spectrum of those use cases that Stan just described. We said, okay, now what's necessary to support this spectrum of use cases? So we didn't start by looking at use cases. We started first by looking at what we wanted to achieve as a business outcome overall. And that led us to say, okay, the first thing we need to do is have pervasive connectivity, because if things can't give you data and you can't capture that data, then you're already at a deficit. And then once you capture that data, and we're using pervasive Wi-Fi with Aruba. And then the second part is, once you capture that data, then what do you do with it? Then you need a compute platform. You need a data center class compute platform that's going to be able to deliver satisfactory computational capabilities and support accelerators and other things that are necessary to deliver the kind of outcomes you're looking for. Third thing you have to look at is, okay, what am I going to put all this compute and storage into? And so you need an environment that's controlled, secured, and that's where we came with the Edge Data Center. So it was those drivers that led to that foundation from which we're building all these use cases.
And Linda, what are you seeing from this marriage of OT and IT and modernization, taking advantage of edge computing? What is it getting for you in terms of improvements? Do you have ability to measure and describe the business outcome benefits?
Sure. Well, at Texmark, we like to have fun. So I would have to say the first outcome is that we're having fun learning about technology. That's something that's really unique about Texmark and our culture, is that we have this student mindset, this learning culture here at Texmark. And so I thought this is the perfect project and a perfect place for us to embark on this IT, OT, and journey with HPE and CBT and all of our ecosystem partners. So number one, we've been having fun. Two is we have been learning about what is possible. What can this technology do for us? We've seen, and when we visited the HPE Innovation Lab, we saw very quickly the application of IT and OT in all other industries. But when we saw the sensored pump, that was our aha moment. That's when we learned what IoT and its impact meant to Texmark. As far as KPIs, we are gathering data. We're learning more about how we can employ IoT in our business. What does that mean? That means moving away from the clipboard and the spreadsheet and towards already having the data somewhere, and it's a matter of dragging and dropping and pulling it into whatever software package or whatever meeting, wherever we need it, having that available and at our fingertips, having the data do its analytics for us and already telling us, okay, this is where you need to focus your next precious turnaround time. The other thing is that this IoT project is helping us attract and retain talent. Right now it's a very competitive market. We just hired a couple of new operators, and I truly believe that one of the reasons or the tipping point for them was that they had seen and heard about our IoT project and the Refinery of the Future when they Googled us prior to their interview. We just hired a new maintenance manager who has a lot of IoT experience from other plants and was intrigued by the project that we're working on. And then finally, it's bringing new business for Texmark. It's putting us on a map with other pioneers in the industry who are dipping their toe in the water of IoT, and we're getting national and international recognition from other chemical plants and refineries that are looking to do toll processing, and they're now seeking us out because of this competitive edge that we can offer them, additional data for the processes that they bring to us, the ability to see real-time data, to have it do analytics for them, and for them to be able to experiment in the IoT arena without having to do it necessarily inside their own fence line.
Yeah, and Linda, quickly, if you could, just explain what toll processing is for those who might not be familiar with it and why it's such a key opportunity for improvement there.
Sure. Texmark produces dicyclopentadiene, and we produce butyl alcohol, propyl alcohol, some aromatic solvents. But alongside of the products that we produce and sell, we also provide toll processing services. The analogy that I like to tell my friends at happy hour is we have the blender and our customers bring the lime and tequila and we make their margaritas for them. So our customers will bring to us their raw materials, they'll bring the process conditions, the temperatures and the pressures and the flows and the throughput, and say, this is my material, this is my process, will you run it in your equipment on our behalf? So when we're able to add the IoT component to toll processing, when we're able to provide them data that they maybe didn't have whenever they ran their process at their plant, that provides us a competitive edge among or above other toll processors.
And, of course, your optimization in those instances can go right to the bottom line. So a very big business benefit when you do things right the first time and learn as you go as well. All right, back to you, Stan. It's interesting to me that when it requires an ecosystem, that you have to be able to culturally understand what the other big players are doing and align and collaborate with them. But you also have to look at what's going on inside of your customer, in this case Texmark, where they've got silos of people and processes that are probably until recently been sort of isolated and standalone. They don't even speak the same language. So tell us a little bit about the cultural collaboration element, both from the ecosystem provider team sport side, but also from getting people inside of a customer like Texmark to perhaps think differently and behave differently than they had in the past.
Well, it's all surrounded by human behavior. If you're going to make progress in anything of this nature, you're going to have to understand the guy sitting across the table from you or the person out in the plant who's working in some fairly challenging environments, and the folks who are sitting at the control room table who have a lot of responsibility for managing the processes going on with lots of chemicals for many hours at a time. So we sat down with them. We got introduced to them. We explained to them our credentials. We asked them and tell us about their job. We got to know them as people. They got to know us as people. We tried to establish some balance and some trust. And then we started saying, we're here to help. And they started telling us, here are some of my problems. Can you help me do this? Then we took some time, came up with some ideas, came back and socialized those ideas with them. And then we started attacking the problems in little chunks of accomplishments. We would say, well, what if we can do this in the next 2 weeks and show you how this can be an asset for you? And they said, great. They liked the fact that that was a quick turnaround time, that they could see some responsivity. We got some feedback from them. We developed a little more confidence and trust between each other, and then more things started outpouring a little at a time. And then from one department, we went to another department, and pretty soon we started understanding and learning about all aspects of this chemical plant. It didn't happen overnight. It means that we had to be patient because it's in operation. We couldn't inject ourselves unnaturally, but we had to be patient and take it in increments that we could actually demonstrate success. And over time, you sometimes can't tell the difference between us and some of their workers because we all come to meetings together, we talk, we collaborate, and we're one team. worked.
And Stan, on this level of a total digital transformation, when you look at the bigger picture, the strategic picture, how far along do you think they are there at Texmark, and what would be some of the next steps? It seems that oftentimes, like with software development or other areas that you build slowly but surely, but as you increase your productivity and you make those cultural accommodations and productivity benefits, you can start to see larger and larger benefits. So where are you on the spectrum of digital transformation, and what might you be setting yourself up for next? And I'm chime in, Linda, as well, if you have something to offer on that.
Well, I think they're very far along in digital transformation. As I outlined kind of earlier, they're utilizing quite a few technologies that are available and not leaving too many on the table. So we have edge computing, we have some very strong ubiquitous communication networks, we have software analytics that's be able to analyze the data, and we're using some very advanced asset integrity applications to be able to determine where every piece, part, and element of the plant is located and how it's functioning. I've seen other companies that have tried to take this maybe one chapter at a time, but they sometimes have multiple departments working on these attempts independently, and they're not necessarily ready to integrate or ready to scale across the company. What Texmark has done is they've taken a corporate approach to look at the holistic operation they have here, have all their departments understand what's going on, and bring them on in a systematic way. I believe they're ready to scale more easily than other companies once we get past this first phase.
Linda, any thoughts about where you are and what that has set you up to go to next in terms of that holistic approach?
Well, I agree with what Stan just said, and from an operational standpoint, when I think about what the next steps would be, for example, in our use case where we have the sensored pump for predictive analytics, we might instead, or in addition to that, we might sensor all the pumps associated with a single process rather than just a single pump within that process. So that would mean in our next phase, sensoring another 6 or 7 pumps for either for one of our toll processes or our production process, like on the DCPD process, and then not just do analytics on the single pump and its health and life cycle and when it needs to be next repaired, but instead look at the entire process and the 6 or 7 pumps in that process and think, okay, well, not only will I need to take this one pump down for repair, but instead there are 2 or 3 that might need some service or maintenance in the next 9 months, but the analytics tell me that if I can wait 12 months, then I can do them all at the same time and bring down the process and have a more efficient use of our downtime. So I could see something like that happening.
We're actually already seeing growth in this area where the workers have seen us provide real-time data to them on hands-free mobile and wearable devices, and they said, well, could you give me historical data over the past hour, week, month? And that would help me a whole lot to be able to determine whether I've got an immediate problem or not, just not one spike resident piece of information. So they're giving us immediate feedback on that, and that's progressing.
So, Peter, we're hearing about more granular approach to the sensors, the IoT edge getting richer, more and more data being created, more historical analysis of that data. From an AI perspective, it sounds to me like you're setting yourself up to now be much more able to take advantage of things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, and analytics that go hand in hand. So what would be the next step from your perspective as a technology vendor? Now that they've got that data stream and they're growing it, where do you go next in terms of applying intelligence in new ways?
That's a great question, Data, because data growth is exponential, and as more sensors are added, videos incorporated more into their workflows, and they connect more of the workers and the employees at Texmark, the data needs and the data traffic are going to grow exponentially. But with that comes an opportunity, one, to better manage the data so you get value from it, because the data is not all the same. It's not all created equal. So the opportunity there is, one, data management so that we get value from the data at its peak value, and then we manage that data cost effectively So that's one of the areas of opportunity. Because of this massive amounts of data that's going to be created, it's going to allow us to better train the current models that we have and create new ones, because the more data that you have, the better you can do machine learning and potentially deep learning. So that's going to create an opportunity there as well. And then lastly is, okay, what are new insights that we can create that we can't today? And I think that's going to give us the greatest opportunity, where we start taking advantage of the data that we've identified today and use it in new and creative ways to give us better insights, to make better decisions, to increase health and safety, because now we can take the data from the sensors, the data from the videos, cross-correlate that with weather data and other types of data, supply chain data, incorporate that into the selling motion to enable and empower salespeople to negotiate better contracts, et cetera. So, again, this whole art of the possible starts to manifest itself as we start getting more and more data from more and more sources. So very excited about it.
All right, I'm afraid we're about out of time, but for a last question or two, I'd like to perhaps get your impressions on what other people who are seeking to create a refinery of the future where they are, what advice do you have for them? Let's start with you, Stan. For those folks that might not be as down into the weeds on this as Texmark and seeing some of the benefits, what advice do you give people who are perhaps starting out into the combination of OT, IoT, and IT?
I would recommend that they have somebody who's going to be leading the group. You can try and flip through the catalogs and find the best vendors who've got the best widgets and start talking to them and bring them on board, but that's not necessarily going to get you to an end game. You're going to have to step back, understand your customer, and come up with a holistic approach of how you're going to assign responsibilities and specific tasks and get that organized and scheduled. There's a lot of parties and there's a lot of pieces on this chess table here, and keeping them all moving in the right direction and at a cadence that people can handle is important. And I think having one contractor or a department head in charge of that is quite valuable.
Linda, words of advice for those seeking more benefits like you've been able to enjoy?
Well, my favorite response to this question is that you should rent a party bus. And what I mean by that is when we first began our journey, actually our first lecture, our first step onto the learning curve about IoT was when Texmark rented a party bus and put about 13 employees on it, and we took a field trip to the HPE Innovation Lab. When Doug, our CEO, and I were invited to visit that lab, and we instead decided to bring a handful of employees to go see what this IoT thing was all about. That was the best thing we could have ever done because the excitement was built from the beginning. They saw, as we say, the art of the possible at the IoT lab, and the ride home on that bus was exciting. They had ideas. They didn't even know where to begin, but they had ideas just from what they had seen and what they had learned in a 2-hour tour about what we could do at Texmark right away. So the engagement, the buy-in was there from the beginning. And I have to say that was probably one of the best moves we've made to ensure the success of this project.
Well, great. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. We've been exploring how Texmark Chemicals and its solutions partners are defining the refinery of the future based on operational technology optimization. And we've learned how combining the best of that OT with IT and now IoT delivers data-driven insights that promote safety, efficiency, and unparalleled sustained operations. So please join me now in thanking our guests. We've been here with Linda Salinas, Vice President of Operations at Texmark Chemicals. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you, Dana.
We've also been here with Stan Galansky. He's Senior Vice President of Customer Success at CB Technologies. Thank you, Stan.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Dana. Enjoyed it.
You bet. And also, lastly, we've been here with Peter Moser. He's IoT and AI Strategist at HPE. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you for having me.
And a big thank you as well to our audience for joining us for this BriefingsDirect Voice of the Customer, Hybrid IT, and Internet of Things Solutions discussion. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host for this ongoing series of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise-sponsored discussions. Thanks again for listening. Please pass this along to your IT community, and do come back next time.